not prepared to undergo the extended toil and sacrifice that some particular endeavor may require, then despite having all the native potential for great success in that endeavor, and with all the doors of opportunity wide open, you can nevertheless become an utter failure. Not all the prerequisites are necessarily within the sole control of the individual who has them or does not have them. Even extraordinary capacities in one or some of the prerequisites can mean nothing in the ultimate outcome in some endeavors. Back in the early 20th century, for example, Professor Lewis M. Terman of Stanford University launched a research project that followed 1,470 people with IQs of 140 and above for more than half a century. Data on the careers of men in this group, from a time when full-time careers for women were less common, showed serious disparities even within this rare group, all of whom had IQs within the top 1%. Some of these men had highly successful careers, others had more modest achievements, and about 20% were clearly disappointments. Of 150 men in this less successful category, only 8 received a graduate degree, and dozens of them received only a high school diploma. A similar number of the most successful men in Terman's group received 98 graduate degrees, more than a tenfold disparity among men who were all in the top 1% in IQ. Meanwhile, 2 men who were tested in childhood and who failed to make the 140 IQ cutoff level later earned Nobel Prizes, as none of the men with IQs of 140 and above did. Clearly, then, all the men in Terman's group had at least one prerequisite for that extraordinary achievement, namely, a high enough IQ. And equally clearly, there must have been other prerequisites that hundreds of these men with IQs in the top 1% did not have. As for factors behind differences in educational and career outcomes within Terman's group, the biggest differentiating factor was in family backgrounds. Men with the most outstanding achievements came from middle-class and upper-class families and were raised in homes where there were many books. Half of their fathers were college graduates at a time when that was far more rare than today. Among those men who were least successful, nearly 1/3 had a parent who had dropped out of school before the 8th grade. Even extraordinary IQs did not eliminate the need for other prerequisites. Sometimes what is missing may be simply someone to point an individual with great potential in the right direction. An internationally renowned scholar once mentioned at a social gathering that when he was a young man, he had not thought about going to college until someone else urged him to do so. Nor was he the only person of exceptional ability of whom that was true. Distinguished economist Richard Rosette was another example. Some other people, including people without his great abilities, would automatically apply to college if they came from particular social groups where that was a norm. But without that one person who urged him to seek higher education, this particular internationally renowned scholar might well have become a fine automobile mechanic or a worker in some other manual occupation, but not a world-class scholar. There may be more or less of an approximation of a normal bell curve as far as how many people have any particular prerequisite, and yet a very skewed distribution of success based on having all the prerequisites simultaneously. This is not only true in theory. Empirical evidence suggests that it is true also in practice. In golf, for example, there is something of an approximation of a bell curve when it comes to the distribution of such examples of individual skills as the number of putts per round of golf or driving distances off the tee. And yet there is a grossly skewed distribution of outcomes requiring a whole range of golf skills, namely winning Professional Golfers Association (PGA) tournaments. Most professional golfers have never won a single PGA tournament in their entire lives, while just 3 golfers, Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, and Tiger Woods, won more than 200 PGA tournaments between them. Moreover, there are similarly skewed distributions of peak achievements in baseball and tennis, among other endeavors. Given multiple prerequisites for many human endeavors, we should not be surprised if economic or social advances are not evenly or randomly distributed among individuals, groups, institutions, or nations at any given time. Nor should we be surprised if the laggards in one century